Welcome to another installation of screencasts for Comms 126. This is a quick one. I'm just going to show you a couple different ways to make to group things together. One is by using precomps, which we've already been through, and one is to use a null object. And there are many reasons that we might want to use a null object. You can attach effects to a null object. You can also do motion tracking with a null object for video if you wanted to have something look like it belonged in the video that was type that you added later. So let's get started. I've already opened After Effects and I will go Command-Shift-S. And no, I'm still in QuickTime. Command-Shift-S will make a new project for myself. I'm just going to call this Art and save it to my desktop. And all we need is a new composition, which I can make with this little composition button here. It's probably the easiest way. I have 5 seconds of time, which is fine for what we need. Have a yellow background. This is the setting that we're going to use. Just to go over that again, it's HDV, HDTV, 720, 29.7 frames per second. And I will go ahead and click OK. It's defaulted to this yellow background. That's fine for now. Let's take a look. Let's make some shapes. So I'm going to go to the ellipse tool, and I'm going to make one, if I hold the shift key, one circle. And you'll notice that the anchor point for the circle is not in the center of the circle. So I'm going to go to the anchor point tool, or the pan behind tool. I'm going to grab that anchor point. If I hold the command key, it will snap to the center of my circle. I have this circle. I'm going to kind of leave it here, and I want to make another circle. And this one's going to be a little bit different. So the same thing, ellipse tool, the last thing I was on. I'll create this smaller circle holding down the shift key. And this time the anchor point is off the center of that circle, but I'm going to do something else. I'm going to put that anchor point in the middle of the circle. So if I go to the anchor point tool, and grab the anchor point, hold the command key, it'll now snap to the center of this other circle, right? I think I want to change the color of, let's change the color of this circle. I'll change it to red, the red color, and maybe down here red, something a little more vibrant. How's that? That's good? Okay. I'm going to make this smaller circle rotate around the axis of this bigger circle, and I can do that now that this anchor point is dead center in the big circle, and that's just another way to treat an anchor point. But I can close up this contents for shape layer 2, which is the circle I want to make orbit, and I'll open up this transform animators, and I'll start this rotation stopwatch right here to lay down a keyframe in 0 degrees. I'll go to the end of my timeline, and I can change the rotation here. I can make it go counterclockwise if I go to the negative. I can make it go clockwise if I go to the positive. If I mess with this over here where it says degrees, that's just going to change within 360 degrees. I can tell it rotate 90 degrees. Well, this is a little easier to do what we're trying to do. This is 19 times over 5 seconds. So let's see what that looks like. Let me select off of those so I can see what it looks like. That is going pretty fast. It's going a little too fast actually, so I'm going to calm that down. So I'll go, and remember you can go J key, K key to skip back and forth between our keyframes. Okay, so I'm going to calm this down a little bit, maybe go 8 times and see what that looks like. That's a little bit better. It's not freaking my eye out. It looks like a good rotation. Okay. So a couple ways I can do that. I could I can call this like if I want to rename this, I can right click on it, go to composition settings and say this is orbit. So that's my orbit composition. Excuse me, it's been a long day. I think it's late. So I've got this composition. I could take this composition, make another composition, and call it asterisk asterisk main, and maybe main and maybe underscore art, and hit OK. And I can now drag this orbit composition. It takes on the whole size of the composition, but it doesn't have a background, so I don't really have to worry about that interfering with something else. And I can do that as many times as I want. I could put another one out here if I grab this composition and put it back in here in a different spot. And now we've got 2 of those, and they're orbiting at the same time. And I can change. I could make those move. I could make them rotate. I've got all the same transform animators here that I had on the other objects, right? On the shape layers. I'm not going to do that. I'll just save this main. I'm going to go back to the orbit, and I'll show you a different way to do it. Now, comps and pre-comps are great, and we're going to use them a lot. But for right now, if I don't want to go into comps and pre-comps, I can go ahead and change this inside this composition, and I'm going to duplicate these layers with their animation already set. So all I have to do is hit the Command D key, and it's going to create copies of these layers. I want you to see, though, that they're stacked kind of weird. And I'm going to take this and reorder them so that they're grouped together. It copied them and staggered them. So by moving this one up, I've got layer 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if I grab a 3 and 4, those are the last ones I made. I can just move those over, and now they're doing the same thing together. Looks a lot like when we did a pre-comp and put it in a comp. So I can do that one more time. I can take this, take these guys, this layer, shape layer 3 and 4, and I can do the same thing, Command D, and move this layer up. Right, layer 5, I'll move up there. So now we've got them in a nice row. And if I grab 5 and 6 and move them over, and make a little group of them, let's just kind of line them up so that they're even. Now look what happens. I've got 3 of these things with little rotating things going around. And now I want to make them all move together. And I can do that with a null object. All I have to do is go up here to composition, layer, and go new layer. This is where we get solids and lights and cameras. I'm going to go null object, and that's going to create this invisible little object that I can move around, and I'm going to place it right in the middle. This is where the anchor point is. So if I put the anchor point right in the middle of all these 3 things, and then here's a nice little trick. Remember how we parented the skeleton together? I can select all these layers, and I can grab the pick whip from one of the layers, and I can parent them all to that null object. So now see, when it says parent, they all say null 1. That's what we want. So I want to show you, if I grab that null, I can move them all around by the null because they're all parented to it. So if I want to move the null object, say I want to animate that null object, I can do that super easy. I can go down here to position, click the stopwatch. Oops, actually, that's a little far down the timeline. I'll go back earlier in time, click the stopwatch. I'm going to make it go all the way across the stage, and I'll grab that null object again and just drag it And so now the whole thing is doing its deal and it's following that little path. And I can even animate, say, rotation. I can animate scale. I can do really anything I want. But if I animated rotation again, it would animate this null rotationally. And I could go down here and I could tell it, let's make it roll a few times. That's degrees. Remember, we don't want that. We want the times. I'm gonna roll it 4 times. So between here and here, it's going to do 360 degrees 4 times. So it does something like that. Cool? Okay. So just as a little bit of a review, I'm going to close all this up, and I'm just going to treat this like my main composition. And if we want a black frame at the beginning and the end of the composition, I can go back up here to Layer, and as long as I don't have anything selected, no layers selected, I can go to Layer, New, same menu we were in before to make the null object. I can go Solid. So that's a solid shape. The last solid I made was black, and that's what I want. It's defaulted to the right size, so I know this is our size, and I'll just hit OK. That puts a black shape over the entire thing. You can see where things are animating, but you can't really see it because of the black shape. I can grab this end of its timeline, and I can shorten its time on Earth to very small. So when I play it, it's just a black frame at the beginning. I can duplicate that black frame, Command D, and I can drag that one to the end. Let's see. Let's put it someplace where I can grab it and drag it. So now there's a black frame at the end. If I wanted to get really fancy, see, black frame. If I want to get really fancy, I could make this longer, and I could do a fade in. If I open up Transform, and I'll go 100% black to start. I click that opacity, and I'll come down here a little ways, and I'll make this 0. And now you'll see I have a fade in. Okay, pretty easy. Okay, also let's review just rendering this out and the settings that I want you to use. I will go over to Composition and down to Add to Render Queue. And I know that it's, I've already set this up where it's going to my desktop to output to. I'm going to click on Lossless down here. It opens up the Output Module Settings window. I'm going to go to Format Options. I'm going to go down to H.264, which is the video codec I want you to be using. That's a way that I know that it's coded, that I can open it in QuickTime. I don't have to convert, and also it will trim your file size down quite a bit. If you have audio, here's where I would compress audio, and you can use any of these ACC settings. I particularly like ACC Enhanced Low Delay. That's MPEG-4. And I will click OK, and again click OK, and you're ready to render. And I just hit the render button and wait for it as it renders. And bling, and that's it. I'll see you in class. Thanks.